Hello everyone! For the Cooking Club of March 2021, we will be talking about the Pesco Mediterranean diet, which is very popular worldwide for the numerous health benefits that it offers. We will be starting the presentation by looking at fish and omega-3 fatty acids, which are essential nutrients to the body. We will be looking at some research and providing you with some tips on how to implement this into your daily routine. The American Heart Association recommends eating fish at least 2 times per week as part of a healthy diet, and we are going to tell you more about why. Inflammation in the body is the cause of many morbidities, including cardiovascular disease. Atherosclerosis is an inflammatory disease that occurs due to the buildup of fats, cholesterol, and other substances in the artery walls. Cholesterol buildup is associated with an inflammatory response. In addition, triglycerides are fats from the food that we eat that increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, fish oils and fish are composed of omega-3 fatty acids, which are often used to lower triglycerides and can also reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. Fatty acids are the building blocks of the fat in our bodies and in the food we eat. During digestion, the body breaks down fats into fatty acids, which can then be absorbed into the blood. Fatty acids have many important functions in the body, including energy storage. If glucose isn't available for energy, the body uses fatty acids to fuel the cells instead. The most common omega-3 fatty acids are ALA, EPA, and DHA. The human body cannot naturally make omega-3 fatty acids, so they must be obtained from the diet. It's important to note that ALA consumed can be converted into EPA and then into DHA once in the body. However, the conversion rate is very limited. Thus, EPA and DHA must also come directly from foods or dietary supplements to increase the level of fatty acids in the body. EPA and DHA specifically also have many essential roles in the body and anti-inflammatory properties, which improves the function of your organ and health. Here are some specific roles of the omega-3s in the body. EPA has been found to effectively lower triglyceride levels without increasing LDL cholesterol. It has also been found to reduce levels of C-reactive protein, which is indicative of inflammation in the body. DHA is related to healthy brain activity, and there are numerous research articles that cite this function. It also improves cognitive function, but it may affect levels of LDL cholesterol when used in combination with EPA, as we will mention later on. ALA has been found to have antioxidant properties and to be present in the mitochondria, which is responsible for energy creation in the body. It has also been found to be crucial to healthy digestion.
So other benefits of fish oils include mental health, eye health, and mental decline benefits. Starting with mental health, some studies indicate that people who consume omega-3s regularly are less likely to be depressed. And furthermore, when people with depression or anxiety start beginning to take omega-3 supplements, their symptoms start to improve. And of the 3 types of omega fatty acids mentioned earlier, ALA, EPA, and DHA, EPA appears to be the best at fighting depression, with one study even finding that EPA is effective against depression as a common antidepressant drug. Now, next up is eye health. So, DHA, one of the 3 omega acids, is a major structural component of the retina in your eye, and when you don't get enough DHA, vision problems may arise. So interestingly enough, one study found that getting enough omega-3 is linked to a reduced risk of macular degeneration, which is one of the world's leading causes of permanent eye damage and blindness. And finally, omega-3s may help fight age-related mental decline and Alzheimer's disease. And there have been several studies published on this, which all found to link higher omega-3 intake to decreased age-related mental decline and a reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease. One review of controlled studies actually suggests that omega-3 supplements may be in fact beneficial at disease onset, even when the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease are very mild. So the next trial I'll be talking about is called PREDIMED, which stands for Primary Prevention of Cardiovascular Disease with the Mediterranean Diet. And PREDIMED essentially was a large Spanish primary prevention trial, which included roughly 7,500 Spanish participants, ranging from the age of 55 to 80 years old, who were all at high risk for cardiovascular disease, but were otherwise healthy, which meant that they were all initially free of cardiovascular disease. Now, these participants were randomly assigned to 3 different groups. One group that would be following a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, one that would be following the Mediterranean diet supplemented with nuts, and one that would be following a control diet which encouraged low-fat food items. And what researchers were primarily looking out for was any major cardiovascular event, such as a myocardial infarction, stroke, or death from cardiovascular causes throughout the study duration. Now, while the original study was published in 2013, in 2018, the New England Journal of Medicine actually retracted the original 2013 study as a result of error in randomization procedures, which affected a proportion of participants in the trial. And once the original 2013 study was retracted, concurrently, the investigators published a new updated trial in 2018 with reran analyses. Now, despite these changes, researchers found that there are no significant changes in the actual results of both trials when the data was reanalyzed. In both the original and republished study, the incidence of cardiovascular adverse events in both the Mediterranean diet groups were lowered by approximately 30% when compared to the control diet. Now, because PREDIMED remains one of the largest preliminary dietary intervention trials to date, it does serve as an important piece of evidence that do show the impact of fish oils in terms of it being in a diet setting, because the Mediterranean diet does include a lot of nuts and fish, which, as established before, are both good sources of EPA/DHA. And this essentially just showed the benefits of eating foods with omega-3s within your diet in a cardiovascular context.
The vitamin D and omega-3 trial, termed VITAL, was conducted to determine if omega-3s prescribed for high triglyceride levels are effective in reducing the risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease in people with no prior history. 25,000 participants were randomized to either take 1 gram a day of Lovaza, which is an EPA/DHA supplement, 2,000 international units of vitamin D3, both Lovaza and vitamin D3, or a dual placebo for approximately 5 years. The results of this trial indicate that EPA/DHA supplementation with or without vitamin D3 was not effective for the primary prevention of cardiovascular or cancer events among healthy middle-aged men and women over 5 years of follow-up. This to date is one of the largest trials on this topic. However, the finding of the lower heart attack risk with the omega-3 fatty acids is hypothesis generating and deserves further study.
Now, while PREDIMED did highlight the importance and benefits of including omega-3 in your diet, we do know that there are different types of omega-3s, such as EPA, DHA, and ALA. And this is what Reduce It comes into play. So Reduce It is a trial that stands for Reduction of Cardiovascular Events with Icosapent Ethyl Intervention Trial. And their research question was essentially this. So in patients with established atherosclerotic heart disease or diabetes with an additional risk factor on pre-existing statin therapy with high levels of triglycerides in the blood, does icosapent ethyl, which is essentially a highly purified EPA, reduce cardiovascular events compared to placebo? So this trial randomized roughly 8,200 patients from 470 sites in 11 countries with established atherosclerotic heart disease or diabetes and an additional risk factor on baseline statin therapy to 2 grams of icosapent ethyl twice daily, or placebo. And they essentially assessed for major cardiovascular events, which included cardiovascular death, non-fatal myocardial infarction, non-fatal stroke, or unstable angina. And their finding was this. So in participants that took the highly purified EPA, it was associated with an absolute 4.8 reduction in cardiovascular events compared to the placebo group. However, there are some criticisms of this trial. Ezetimibe and PCSK9 use was very low in the trial, and whether the benefit of this purified EPA persists in patients receiving these drugs on top of baseline statin therapy is still unclear. Additionally, the placebo pill they used was filled with mineral oil to give that yellow hue tint, but unfortunately that can serve as a possible confounder because it isn't truly a placebo, and there might be some effects that were unaccounted for.
One of the most awaited trials to end this fish oil debate was the strength trial conducted by the American Heart Association. It was conducted over a period of 6 years and stopped in 2020. The objective of the study was to look at the effects of fish oil supplementation on cardiovascular outcomes in high-risk patients with high triglycerides and low HDL cholesterol in relation to fish oil supplementation. The study used a sample of 13,078 participants. The conclusion was that omega-3s, in comparison to the corn oil placebo, did not reduce the incidence of major cardiovascular disease despite a 269% increase in EPA levels in the blood. It was also found that there was an increased risk of atrial fibrillation associated with omega-3 intake. This highly anticipated trial puzzled the scientific community and indicated that further research is needed to determine why this trial resulted in null results, in contrast to the positive studies that have been conducted in the past. This brings us to the discussion on supplementation. A lot of patients ask at the clinic if they should be taking the Costco over-the-counter omega-3 vitamins, and research has found when evaluating such pills that most over-the-counter fish oil supplements have no benefit. Some of the reasons behind this is that they're not FDA regulated, the omega-3 amount varies from the labels, and it may not be pure and contain other ingredients. Prescription omega-3 fatty acids are recommended as an alternative to diet to reduce triglycerides in adult patients with severe hypertriglyceridemia, and this has been proven in research and many studies. However, you must consult with your physician regarding this. I'm going to quickly mention some of the prescription fish oils that were used in the trials that we talked about. Lovaza has an EPA DHA content of 900 milligrams, consisting of 52% of EPA and 42% of DHA. Vascepa, or IPE, was used in the Reduce It trial and is only composed of EPA. For now, the general consensus is that EPA seems to be more beneficial in having positive effects in terms of protecting your heart. The reason behind this is still under discussion, and further research is required before making any conclusions. As mentioned, your body cannot naturally create these omega-3 fatty acids, and they must be consumed in your diet. I have created a little chart on the screen that will allow you to show how much EPA, DHA, or ALA can be found in some common food items. Atlantic salmon that is farmed has 1.24 grams of DHA and 0.59 grams of EPA. Wild Atlantic salmon has around the same amount of DHA and about half of the EPA of farmed Atlantic salmon. Canola oil is a good source of ALA, but we'll talk more about that in the next slide. And sardines that are canned, about 3 ounces, has 0.74 grams of DHA and 0.45 grams of EPA.
If you're not a fan of fish, or you don't eat it because of certain dietary restrictions, such as you being a vegetarian or on a vegan diet, there's still many ways you can get these essential omega-3s. Now, one thing to note is that ALA is the most common omega-3 fatty acid in your diet, and unfortunately it's found mostly in plant foods and needs to be converted to EPA or DHA before it can be utilized by your body for something other than energy. Unfortunately, this conversion process is very inefficient in humans, and only a small percentage of ALA is converted into EPA and even less into DHA. That's why it is still recommended to try to eat foods that are high in EPA and DHA. However, there's still some foods that you can eat that are better than nothing. So for ALA, these include flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and canola oil, for example. Now, on the right, I have some other potential foods that aren't exactly fish, and you can read them off for yourself. So first off, we have snow crab, which contains 145 milligrams of DHA per 100 grams serving. Oysters, which provide 188 milligrams of EPA and 203 milligrams of DHA per 100 gram serving. And finally, one thing I really want to mention are omega-3 eggs. So basically, they're like conventional chickens, except that their feed is supplemented with an omega-3 source such as flax seeds. And the omega-3 eggs are produced by hens which are fed this enhanced diet containing a bunch of ALA. So when the hens digest the flax, some of the ALA gets broken down into DHA, and both fatty acids are able to transfer to the yolk. So therefore, one omega-3 egg typically will contain 90 milligrams of DHA depending on the manufacturer.
Here are some fish basics to help you with your preparation of fish. First of all, you want to limit the loss of omega-3 fats. Grilling and broiling is a great method of cooking as it is fast without adding any fats to the fish. However, it's important to note that this method can produce some harmful compounds. To minimize them, you want to cook the fish for the shortest time possible, avoid charring the flesh, and add a marinade. Frying the fish can increase the amount of fat and negatively affect its ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids, which aren't good for you. If you're frying, try pan frying instead and use a healthy oil like olive oil. Steaming and poaching are low temperature cooking methods that may preserve healthy omega-3 fatty acids better than the other methods mentioned. Poaching involves submerging your fish in liquids such as water, milk, stock, while cooking in the oven, and steaming is often carried out in a specifically designed pot or appliance and uses hot vaporized water to cook your fish. And baking is the last method we're going to talk about. This is considered to be one of the most healthy methods as it retains more omega-3s and vitamin D, which is much healthier for your body. Another tip you want to use when preparing fish is to limit your addition of unhealthy items such as excessive salt and butter. Instead, add flavor to your fish by using lemon and spices such as fresh dill, parsley, chives, or smoked paprika. We're going to end off our discussion on fish by talking about contamination. So it's important to be aware of some of the contaminants that may make itself into the fish that we eat. Certain contaminants like mercury, chlorinated pesticides, and other chemicals such as PCBs make it into water sources and can end up contaminating fish who live and feed in those areas. Some of these contaminants can remain in the body for up to 5 years and are especially dangerous for pregnant women and their babies. However, even though this sounds scary, yes, you should still eat fish. Fish is very nutritious and beneficial to the health. It's low in saturated fats and high in protein, vitamins, minerals, and omega-3 fatty acids, which are important for the heart, brain, and overall health. Some ways to avoid contaminants in fish are to eat a variety of fish known to be low in mercury, such as salmon, sardines, cod, tilapia, trout, and others. You can also choose light tuna when buying canned tuna instead of white tuna or albacore tuna, as these have been shown to have lower levels of mercury. Contaminants can also build up over the life of the fish, so if possible, you can choose to eat younger fish.
We're now going to move on to talking a little bit about the Mediterranean diet. So to start off, what is the Mediterranean diet? Well, this is a way of eating that is based on the traditional foods of the countries around the Mediterranean Sea, where the name comes from. The diet is usually high in vegetables and fruits with 7 to 10 servings a day, whole grains instead of processed grains, healthy fat such as olive oil instead of butter or margarine, more seafood than one might typically consume, so about 2 to 3 times per week, limited red meat, and limited dairy when you should be choosing low-fat or plain yogurt when you're eating dairy, and herbs and spices as seasoning instead of salt. So if you were to follow this diet, you would be consuming vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats such as olive oil daily. Fish, poultry, beans, and eggs would be less common, but still a staple of your diet. And then there would only be moderate dairy consumption and very limited red meat. However, it's important to note that the Mediterranean diet extends beyond just what you eat, and it also incorporates elements such as social eating rather than solitary eating, keeping physically active, and from time to time having a glass of red wine. So, why might someone choose the Mediterranean diet? Well, interest in this diet started in the 1960s when it was observed that coronary heart disease caused fewer deaths in the Mediterranean countries. And many studies have been done since then with a focus on the Mediterranean diet, all showing positive results for heart health. So we'll discuss a couple of those now. So to start off, we'll be talking about this study, which was called Mediterranean Diet Improves High-Density Lipoprotein Function in High Cardiovascular Risk Individuals. So this was a randomized trial published in 2017, and it actually used a subset of the population from one of the studies that we talked about earlier, the PREDIMED trial. So this trial used 296 people aged 55 to 80 from that previous trial, and used the same intervention and control of a Mediterranean diet with olive oil or nuts, and a recommendation of a low-fat diet as control. However, while the previous study, the PREDIMED, looked at blood pressure as an outcome, this study looked at the various characteristics related to the good cholesterol, HDL. And after 1 year, the study found that the Mediterranean diet significantly increased cholesterol efflux capacity, which is the ability of HDL to scoop up cholesterol particles from plaques in the heart's blood vessels and move those particles to the liver for disposal. It also increased the ability of HDL to prevent accumulation of free cholesterol, and it improved the number of HDL particles, among some other results. So overall, this study showed that the Mediterranean diet, especially when it was enriched with extra virgin olive oil, improved HDL's ability to protect against the formation of plaque deposits on the artery walls. So to start off, we'll be talking about
Okay, so the second piece of research that we're going to be looking at is the CardioPrev study, which stands for the Coronary Diet Intervention with Olive Oil and Cardiovascular Prevention Study. This was a study released in 2016 that investigated the efficacy of a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil versus a low-fat diet on cardiovascular disease in coronary patients over the course of 7 years. This was a randomized, single-blind, controlled dietary intervention trial that involved 102 coronary heart disease patients with high cardiovascular risk. Participants were assigned to a med diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, and basically consisted of 35% fat, 15% protein, and 50% carbs. And then other patients were assigned to a controlled low-fat diet. And the incidence of cardiovascular events was recorded based on how often they recurred. So these included myocardial infarctions, revascularization, ischemic stroke, documented peripheral artery disease, and cardiovascular death. It was found that patients who followed the Mediterranean diet had a higher flow-mediated dilation of their brachial arteries, their endothelial function was better, and overall patients experienced less cardiovascular events. And so in conclusion, the Mediterranean diet was found to be better than the low-fat diet, and it's associated with a better balance of vascular homeostasis in coronary heart disease patients. The last bit of research that we're looking at is a randomized primary prevention trial of cardiovascular disease. So basically, the Mediterranean diet has been shown to have beneficial effects on cardiovascular risk factors. And so this study wanted to look at the short-term effects of 2 different Mediterranean diets. versus those on a low-fat diet on the immediate markers of cardiovascular risk. So this study involved 772 people aged 55 to 80 who had a high cardiovascular risk, and this went on for about a year. Participants were assigned to one of two Mediterranean diets. So those allocated to Mediterranean diets received nutritional education and either extra virgin olive oil or nuts to contribute to their diet. These groups were compared to the control group who had just a low-fat diet. So they measured the cardiovascular risk factors, including body weight, blood pressure, lipid profile, glucose levels, and inflammatory molecules in the body. And compared with the low-fat diet, the two Mediterranean diets produced beneficial changes in these measured outcomes. And so they concluded that compared to the low-fat diet, the Mediterranean diet, whether it's with nuts or olive oil, will have a more beneficial effect on cardiovascular risk factors rather than just a low-fat diet.
Healthy fats are integral to the Mediterranean diet, and this is where fish becomes important. Olive oil is an important source of healthy fats, and it provides monosaturated fats, which can lower total cholesterol, and LDL, which is the bad cholesterol. Fatty fish such as mackerel, herring, sardines, tuna, salmon, and lake trout are also rich in important fats, however. These have omega-3 fatty acids, which is a polyunsaturated fat that can help reduce inflammation, decrease triglycerides, reduce blood clotting, and decrease the risk of stroke and heart failure. In the Mediterranean diet, or even if you're just trying to incorporate parts of the Mediterranean diet into your personal diet, fish should be eaten about 2 to 3 times per week, and you should make sure to avoid deep-fried fish and choose baked or grilled fish instead.
Okay, so now we're going to go into a couple of tips for incorporating the med diet into your daily lifestyle. So number one, for weight loss, you want to stick to the med diet for a minimum of 6 weeks. So, watch your portions, get your regular exercise, stick to the diet, and by 6 weeks, you might be so well adjusted that a lifetime of the med diet won't seem like dieting at all. Tip number 2 is to make small changes over time. So to switch to a Mediterranean diet, making small changes in your daily meals will really help you sort of take that step-by-step process. So a couple of simple strategies include adding more fruits and veggies to your daily meals, swapping butter and fats for extra virgin olive oil, swapping refined carbs for whole grains, enjoying some dairy, and swapping some red meat for beans, poultry, or fish. So just a lot of swapping rather than inhibiting or restricting. Number 3, you can keep snacking, but do it med diet style. So a couple of good snacks that really help you out while you're on the med diet include fresh fruit for dessert. So they're a really good source of fiber, vitamin C, antioxidants, and just a good way to indulge in your sweet tooth. So keeping fresh fruit visible at home and maybe a piece or two at work so that you have a healthy snack whenever your stomach starts grumbling is much more beneficial than, say, a packet of chips or a couple of sour keys. You can even freeze your fruits and blend them up into a frozen yogurt for dessert, because Greek yogurt is also included in the med diet for what is okay. Another thing are nuts. These are another Mediterranean diet staple, so grabbing a handful, whether that's almonds, cashews, pistachios, it can make for a really filling and on-the-go snack. Alright, so the last 3 tips that we have for you guys now that you know your bean basics is that number 1, or number 4 I suppose, is that depending on your goals, this may be more than just a diet. The lifestyle is important too, and that means exercise, so it doesn't mean marathon training, but just taking a walk every day or doing some yoga, Pilates, whatever it is really key to a healthier you. And also taking care of your mental well-being, so spending times with your friends and family. Don't be overly hard on yourself if you had a little cheat moment or a little binging moment. It's totally fine. Change takes lots of time and perseverance, and you just kind of have to rise above it and persevere. So tip number 5 is that when eating out, it's really difficult to stick to a diet, so you should be flexible, but only to an extent. So for example, choosing fish or seafood as the main dish, asking them to bake your food rather than fry it, or if you're at home, you can maybe air fry it, stir fry it rather than deep fry it. And also just be aware that certain cuisines are a little bit more med diet friendly than others. So for example, Mediterranean food is med diet friendly. Mexican food and Indian food tend to be pretty med diet friendly as well. And finally, the last tip is to savor every bite. So rushing through your meals or eating on the go can lead to overconsumption too quickly, and so instead you want to be mindful of your food, focusing on how each bite tastes, and it may lead you to be more aware of when you're full and decrease your chances of overeating. So focusing on eating slowly and enjoying your meal, even if you have a limited amount of time, is a great way to reduce overeating. Alright, so while we're on the topic of swapping out your red meats for poultry, fish, and beans, we're going to go over a little bit of bean basics because it's good to kind of know and familiarize yourself with what you should eat. So we're going to go in the order of least to most caloric, and starting at number 1, kidney beans. They are 215 calories per 1 cup of cooked kidney beans. And they are one of the most commonly consumed beans, often eaten with rice, and they have lots of health benefits. So you can see here that they contain protein, fiber, vitamin B9, manganese, vitamin B1, copper, and iron. And these are foods that are very high in fiber that can help slow the absorption of sugar into your blood and just reduce your blood sugar levels. In fact, one study of 17 people with type 2 diabetes found that eating kidney beans with rice significantly reduced the spike in blood pressure after their meals compared to just rice alone. So like many other beans, black beans, which are the next one, are a really good source of fiber, protein, and folate. You can see that they are a staple food in Central and South America. One cooked cup of black beans contains roughly 227 calories. There's also protein, fiber, vitamin B9 again, manganese, magnesium, thiamine or vitamin B1, and iron. Black beans also help to reduce spikes in blood sugar after eating them during a meal, and this also helps reduce the risk of diabetes and weight gain. The beneficial effect of black beans is that they have a lower glycemic index compared to other high carbohydrate foods, and this means that they'll cause a smaller rise in blood sugar after a meal, so just like kidney beans there. Next up, we've got 2 beans that don't have the word bean in their names. Number 1 is lentils. So yes, lentils are a type of bean. They are a great type of source of protein, and they can be a great addition to soups and stews. They also have a lot of health benefits, and 1 cup of cooked lentils contains roughly 230 calories. Again, we've got the protein, the fiber, vitamin B9, manganese, copper, vitamin B1. A study of more than 3,000 people have found that those with the highest intake of lentils and other legumes had the lowest rate of diabetes. And finally, we've got chickpeas, which they're also known as garbanzo beans. These are a really good source of fiber, protein, and a lot of studies have shown that these beans, like chickpeas, can help reduce weight, risk factors for heart disease, and even potentially the risk of cancer, especially when you replace these beans with red meat with these beans in a diet. So one cooked cup of chickpeas contains approximately 269 calories, protein, fiber, vitamin B9, manganese, copper, and iron. Chickpeas themselves are particularly beneficial at reducing blood sugar and increasing your insulin sensitivity when compared to other high-carb foods.
So here we can see an example of a meal plan if someone were to be eating the Mediterranean diet. Breakfast and dinner are only included without lunch because lunch is usually fairly similar to dinner, so one can figure it out. So, as we can see, on Monday for breakfast, we might have a boiled egg with whole wheat toast and grilled tomatoes. Other breakfast options could include Greek yogurt with half a cup of fruits and almonds, whole grain oats with cinnamon, dates, honey, and fruit, scrambled egg whites with pepper, onion, tomatoes, and avocado, Greek yogurt again with some other combinations, whole grain toast with soft cheese and fruit, or whole grain oats with fruit. For dinner, we might have meals such as homemade whole grain pizza with tomato sauce, vegetables, chicken, and low-fat cheese. And the reason we say homemade is because that way you can really know what's going into your food and make sure that it's as healthy as possible. We could also have baked salmon with garlic and pepper and grilled eggplant, white bean and arugula salad with tomato, cucumber, feta, and olive oil. We could have steamed spinach with lemon and herb and boiled artichoke with olive oil. We might have quinoa, which is a very complex grain, with pepper, tomato, and olives, and grilled sardine with lemon. Or we might go the way of roasted or stewed vegetables with whole grain couscous or onion and tomato and herb sauce.
So we're just going to go over a little sample meal of a med diet friendly lunch or dinner that you guys can make. So these are egg noodles with walnuts and basils. And the nutrition facts are here. So the recipe that we're about to go through is for a serving size of 6. It is 371 calories, 23.4 grams of fat, 2.4 grams of saturated fat, 22 milligrams of cholesterol, 39 milligrams of sodium, 27.8 grams of carbohydrates. The total sugars are 4.4 grams, and the total dietary fibers is 3.7 grams. And this meal contains 9.4 grams of protein. And remember that this is the amount per serving, not in the entire serving of 6. You can see that it also contains 40 milligrams of calcium, 2 milligrams of iron, and 396 milligrams of potassium. So a couple of little vitamins for you in there. Now for the meal itself, the ingredients include egg noodles, extra virgin olive oil, an onion, white wine, garlic, tomatoes, walnuts, basil, salt and pepper to taste, sugar, tomato paste, and some Parmesan cheese just to taste, so it's totally optional. Now for the steps to actually make the meal. Again, this is for 6 people or 6 servings, and it takes about 50 minutes to make. So step 1 is to saute your onions in 2 tablespoons of oil for about 5 minutes. Once they've turned a nice golden brown, you can add in the wine, the garlic, and the tomatoes and simmer for about another 15 minutes. After that, you can add walnuts, basils, salt, pepper, sugar, and tomato paste, everything that gives it that yummy taste and spice and flavor, and then simmer for about 10 minutes or until it's become nice and thick. And then separately, you can cook the egg noodles according to whatever directions are on your package. Strain them and then add 2 tablespoons of olive oil, toss them with the sauce, and serve freshly with optionally some grated Parmesan cheese. So very simple process, very delicious meal. Let us know if you tried it.
This presentation ends off with a section on tips for staying on a diet, keeping you motivated, and on budgeting while being on a diet, because healthy foods can be expensive, but they can also be cheap if you know how to shop.
The first tip that will help you stay on a diet is to eat intuitively. This means that you should listen to your body and eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. To do this, you have to learn the difference between physical and emotional hunger. Physical hunger is when your stomach growls or you feel fatigued and irritable. This is your body telling you that it's time to replenish nutrients. Emotional hunger is when you eat out of boredom, restlessness, sadness, or loneliness. Thus, you are using often unhealthy comfort foods to cope with negative emotions. Instead, try to find healthier ways that will help you feel better, like going for a walk or a hike, spending time with family or friends, watching a movie, exercising, or practicing mindfulness. Finally, to eat intuitively, you should stop eating out of pure habit and temptation or as an attempt to be social. This means you should only eat when you're hungry and not just because it's lunchtime or you're tempted by the food that is placed in front of you. A good exercise that will help you eat when you're physically hungry and not when it's driven by emotions is to take a pause next time you feel like eating and don't eat immediately. Wait half an hour, drink some water, and reflect on whether or not you feel the physical signs of hunger. Another tip that will help you stay on a diet is to keep unhealthy foods out of sight. Try to avoid processed foods, which are refined, frozen, pickled, preserved, smoked, sweetened, previously cooked, or flavored foods. This includes commonly found foods such as cereal, milk, bagged bread, cheese, and deli meats. Heavily processed foods often include unhealthy levels of sugar, sodium, and fat. These are added by producers to try and make the food taste better. Thus, processed foods have little nutritional value, and eating too much of them can lead to serious health issues like obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. Another way to cut out unhealthy foods is to keep junk food out of the house. The saying "out of sight, out of mind" applies here. So try and remove junk foods from your shopping list. If this is hard to do for any reason, try to keep the junk food you have hidden in cupboards, as a study has shown that having openly displayed unhealthy food is linked to obesity and increased consumption. Finally, try and eat raw plant-based meals when possible, as cooking some vegetables causes the loss of water-soluble vitamins such as vitamin B and C. Also, when making meals, don't make meat the main attraction. The third and last tip that will help you stay on a diet is to plan ahead. Reflect on your current eating habits and make the necessary adjustments. Think to yourself, when do you tend to eat the most junk food? Or how healthy are your overall meals? Find out your problem areas and plan to change them by stocking up on good and healthy foods. Try and make a meal plan for the week. You can do this by writing down the days of the week and making 3 different columns. In each column, write down what you plan to eat on that day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Having a meal plan is extremely helpful, as not knowing what you are going to eat next often leads to the decision of eating junk food. When you are planning to eat out with friends or family, try and find the restaurant's menu online and decide on what you're going to eat beforehand. This is because people are often overwhelmed when looking at the menu in the restaurant and often decide on unhealthier options as a result. Finally, having a meal plan means you are less likely to skip meals, which often leads to binge eating on unhealthy foods. Now we will look at ways to help you stay motivated while you're on your diet. First, try to set SMART goals. By making clear and outlined goals, you are more likely to succeed. The S stands for specific. State exactly what you want to accomplish. The M stands for measurable. Try and use smaller, mini goals to measure your progress, rather than something that would take years to achieve. Which leads us to A, achievable. Make sure your goals are reasonable. The R stands for realistic. Set up a goal that is relevant to your life. And finally, T stands for timely. Give yourself the adequate time that you need to accomplish your goal. An example of a SMART goal would be to aim to cook 2 healthy meals at home for 1 week. Setting these SMART process goals will help you stay motivated, while only focusing on large outcome goals like eating plant-based for the next 3 months can lead to disappointment and decrease your motivation. Another way to stay motivated is to have realistic expectations. Most doctors only recommend losing 1 to 2 pounds or 0.5 to 1 kilograms every week. Aiming for more than that is often unrealistic and harmful, which can lead to crash dieting, a method that doesn't work. Another way to stay motivated is to celebrate small victories. Whenever you accomplish a SMART goal, try to treat yourself by watching a movie, pampering yourself, or buying a new outfit. However, it is important to pick appropriate rewards. Avoid rewarding yourself with comfort foods, as this can often make you feel guilty and steer your diet off track. Another way to help you stay motivated is to keep a food journal. Having a visual reminder of your intake and progress can help motivate you to continue. Research has found that people who track their food intake are more likely to lose weight. To keep a food journal correctly, write down everything you eat in the day, which includes both meals and snacks. You can also record your emotions in your food journal, as this can help you identify certain triggers for overeating and help you find healthier ways to cope. To make a food journal, you can simply use a pen and notebook to draw out a template very similar to the one shown on the slide. There are also numerous websites or apps that can help you track your intake. Finding social support will also help you stay motivated. Join online communities that have like-minded people with similar goals. You can find communities that are trying to stay on a diet on websites like Facebook and MyFitnessPal. The last tip to stay motivated on a diet is to not aim for perfection and think positively. Maintaining a healthy diet is not an all or nothing approach, so don't let one bad day hinder your ultimate goals. Forgive yourself for making mistakes and be kind to yourself. Understand that you're human and that giving in to the temptation of unhealthy foods is normal and will not ruin your progress as long as you try your best to stay on track. Eating on a budget can be difficult, especially when buying healthy whole foods. Studies have found that a healthy diet costs an average of $1.50 more per day than an unhealthy one, which means budgeting is important to help stay on a diet. It is important to remember that this price difference is negligible when factoring in the economic cost of future chronic illness that results from poor diets. One simple trick that will help you cut costs is to base your meals around ingredients that are in season and on sale. You can use budgeting apps, grocery couponing apps, Excel sheets, and receipt tracking to prepare grocery lists and allocate a monthly budget for food. There are many budgeting apps on the market that will help you decide on how much you should be spending on food each month, as well as help track your spending to make sure that you're staying within these limits. Mint, Every Dollar, and You Need a Budget are just some examples of apps you can download onto your phone. These apps will let you customize budget categories, set financial goals, track bills, and share accounts with your family. Another category of apps that can help you stay on a budget are grocery and couponing apps. This includes Flip and Shopper. With these apps, you can make grocery lists and pin weekly coupons from nearby grocery stores. You can also find local prices and deals for the items on your grocery list, so you can foresee how much you will likely be spending if you get everything on your list. If you are not good with using apps, there are also many Excel sheet templates online that can help you track your budget. Go to the website on the slide and select the Budgets tab to find some of these templates. Another way to help you stay on your budget is to keep track of receipts. You can do this by firstly getting an envelope for your receipts. Collect your receipts throughout the week and paperclip them together. Add up the spendings to make sure you stay within your weekly budget and repeat every week. After a month, you can paperclip together all the receipts from that month. For the days where you feel lazy or don't have the time to properly cook healthy meals, there are also food delivery methods that can help you maintain your diet. Food subscription boxes are an example of food delivery that can be healthy. HelloFresh and Good Food are examples of this. They send weekly healthy meal kits with pre-portioned ingredients. These meals are simple, customizable, and healthy. Food ordering and delivery services like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Skip the Dishes also have healthy options. These apps allow you to have convenient, contactless delivery from local restaurants.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. We hope that we've taught you a lot about fish and the Mediterranean diet that may inspire you to incorporate this into your daily life. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below and we will get back to you.